out of the drama? You're friends again, you and Diana Ross?
We never were really friends.
Are you friendly?
Yeah, I'm always going to be cordial to anybody. You keep your drama, you
Out
know.
of the drama. You friends again, you and Diana Ross. We never were really friends. Are you friends with me? Yeah. I'm always going to be cordial to anybody. You keep your drama. You know you're not going to take me forever in a day. I know my sister deal. It ain't nothing to her. Okay, it ain't nothing. Nowry is a little bit different. You know, after all the lights, after the awards, after 6 decades of roaring applause, what Gladys Knight was left with were the silent stabs behind the curtain. The same women who once embraced her in front of cameras, who called her sister in the industry, turned out to be the ones who pushed her off the closing slot, grabbed the mic at the last minute, and erased her name from performance rosters as if she never existed. Now, at 81, Gladys Knight has stopped staying silent. She's decided to expose 5 women who crossed the line, betrayed her trust, and turned sisterhood into backdoor sabotage. Let's begin with the first name. One Diana Ross, the label boss's lover, and the rules no one dared question. They were once 2 of the most successful black women in Motown. They shared the same stage during the Motown Sound Review Tour in the summer of 1968, performed at the Motown Anniversary Gala in 1969 in New York, and stood side by side on the Billboard charts in 1971. But for over 50 years, there was a truth Gladys Knight kept to herself. That truth. Diana Ross once did her dirty, and everyone in the business knew it. But no one said it out loud. As early as 1961, Diana Ross was already being treated like royalty by Motown. She was the lead singer of the Supremes, the first Motown girl group to land 12 #1 hits in the U.S. She was also the public girlfriend of Motown founder Berry Gordy from 1965 to the early 70s, and became the unofficial face of the label at events from Washington to Hollywood. She had it all: the music, the money, the power, and the most powerful man in the music industry backing her. In contrast, Gladys Knight and the Pips joined Motown in 1966 under a modest contract. Before that, they had scored their first hit with Every Beat of My Heart back in 1961, and had spent nearly a decade grinding on the road, performing in small halls, church stages, and nightclubs from Atlanta to St. Louis. No connections, no romantic leverage, just a voice that cut deep, stamina that wouldn't quit, and a resume built through sheer endurance. But because she wasn't part of the family, Gladys was frequently sidelined, downplayed, and in some cases outright bumped in shared events. One of the most blatant and bitter examples happened on November 14, 1970, during a major Motown review show at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. It was the biggest show on Motown's fall tour that year, featuring stars like Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, the Jackson 5, Martha Reeves, and most notably Gladys Knight and the Pips, who were hot off the release of their ballad, If I Were Your Woman, in October. According to Derek Tinsley, a lighting assistant on the tour, the lineup had already been confirmed and printed on the tickets. Gladys Knight and the Pips were scheduled to close the show. It was a huge honor, and the first time Motown had officially recognized her as more than just a reliable opener. This was star status. But around 3:00 p.m. that day, everything flipped. A black limousine not listed on the crew itinerary pulled up behind the venue. Out stepped Diana Ross, flanked by her personal assistant, stylist, and manager. In her hand was a red stamped letter from Berry Gordy's office addressed to the show organizers. The message was short. Diana Ross will be performing tonight at the Spectrum. Please place her in the closing slot. At that point, Diana wasn't part of the tour lineup. She hadn't joined rehearsals. She wasn't mentioned in any press materials, but one letter from Berry Gordy was enough to rewrite the entire show order. The organizers scrambled to reprint contracts, Gladys Knight was asked to sign a new agreement confirming that she had voluntarily agreed to switch slots due to technical sound adjustments. That evening, Gladys Knight and the Pips performed 2 songs before Diana. They brought down the house with I Don't Want to Do Wrong, receiving applause that lasted nearly 2 minutes. Then Diana Ross emerged 45 minutes late. She demanded the stage lighting be reset, had her backup singer step farther back, and made the MC reintroduce her twice until the vibe felt right. She sang exactly 3 songs, said no thank yous, gave no bows, and left before the program even wrapped. Gladys exited the theater in complete silence. According to Tinsley, she skipped dinner with the tour crew and didn't speak a word for the entire ride to the next stop in Baltimore. This wasn't the only time Diana pulled strings behind the scenes. In her memoir, Dream Girl, My Life as a Supreme Mary Wilson, recounted how in 1967, Diana yanked the mic out of her hands during the Ed Sullivan Show, simply because she felt Mary's background vocals were too prominent. Diana also reportedly instructed the Supremes' stylist to hide Mary's more glamorous dress, forcing her into an older outfit. In 1973, at the NAACP Image Awards in Los Angeles, Diana allegedly asked the organizers to remove Martha and the Vandellas from the opening set to avoid clashing styles. And in 1993, during a CBS casting call for the Divas Live special, Tina Turner refused to perform alongside Diana Ross, stating that she doesn't share the spotlight and I don't ask permission to shine. Gladys Knight never named Diana publicly, but for those who were there and saw what went down, it was clear the woman who undercut her wasn't just a fellow diva. It was Diana Ross, to Aretha Franklin, the queen who refused to share the stage. Aretha Franklin entered music history as a force of nature. Dubbed the Queen of Soul, she was praised by U.S. presidents and hailed on stages from the White House to Sunday services. But beneath the crown was a complex woman. Fiercely proud, deeply guarded, and often driven by control and an unshakable fear of being outshined. For decades, Gladys Knight was caught in that shadow. There was no tabloid feud, no public insults, but a cold wall existed between them. Though they attended the same award shows, hit the same charts, and shared the same tribute stages, for Black excellence, they never sang together, never embraced on camera, never even smiled in the same direction. The tension traced back to 1967, when Aretha exploded with respect and was anointed the Queen of Soul by the press. From that point forward, any Black female artist who rose too high became, in Aretha's eyes, a potential rival. Gladys never competed. Her legacy stood on its own. Endless hits, sold-out tours, and a voice forged in gospel and grit. But in the industry, especially to Martha, she was always second tier. That Cold War hit its peak in 1993 at the Essence Awards in Atlanta. Both Aretha and Gladys were being honored as soul legends. The plan was for them to appear together, accept their awards, and stand side by side, a powerful symbol of unity among soul's elder queens. But Aretha arrived over an hour late. She refused to enter the shared dressing area and told producers that no other female artist could stand beside her during her appearance. When the director explained that Gladys had arrived early and was prepared for their joint moment, Aretha responded curtly, she would walk out last or not at all. When the lights came up, Aretha walked alone. No Gladys, no unity. She gave a long speech listing her achievements, thanking her family, her albums, and her role in civil rights, but never once mentioned Gladys Knight. 15 minutes later, Gladys was introduced. She stepped out by herself, smiling with quiet grace, but everyone could feel it. The celebration no longer felt mutual. It had been split in two, and she was left on the edges of the spotlight. Aretha had done this before. She declined a duet with Tina Turner during CBS's 25th anniversary special because she refused to be outshined by a stronger voice. In 1990, she insisted Natalie Cole be moved to an earlier slot, saying the audience couldn't handle two divas back to back. She even disrupted tributes. In 1998, when Whitney Houston was chosen to sing in honor of Etta James at a music festival in Chicago, Aretha called the organizers and demanded the performance be cut. She claimed only artists from Etta's generation had the right to pay tribute. Beyond music, Aretha's personal life was filled with tension. She was involved in long-standing financial disputes, skipped dozens of shows due to lighting demands, clashed with stylists over outfits she deemed too flashy, and frequently refused interviews unless addressed as the Queen. In 2018, when Aretha Franklin passed away, Gladys Knight was invited to sing at her Detroit memorial. Initially scheduled to close the program, Gladys was quietly bumped to the opening slot just hours before the ceremony. No explanation, no apology, just silence. She still sang. She bowed deeply. Then she walked off stage without a word. No one mentioned her in the final speeches. No photo of her appeared on the event's official website. No one explained why she wasn't allowed near the casket. And that silence said it all. Aretha lived and died, a queen fiercely protecting her throne. But the price was a trail of fractured relationships, cold shoulders, and unresolved wounds. Gladys Knight never exposed her, but audiences in their own quiet wisdom could always tell who truly carried grace. 3. Patti LaBelle, a longtime friend and a bitter silence for nearly a decade. Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight once set the gold standard for friendship between two legendary black female artists. They shared the spotlight throughout the 70s and 80s, performing at soul tribute shows, duetting at iconic events, and praising each other in the press. Then from the late 90s until the mid-2000s, they vanished from one another's performances. No duets, no mentions, no warm glances caught on camera. A once authentic friendship torn apart in silence. What caused it? The answer lies in a series of backstage clashes and a seemingly minor schedule swap that exposed a harsh truth. Behind Patti LaBelle's vivacious, vibrant exterior lay an ego so massive and a habit of brutal honesty that it could rip apart any relationship, even one with Gladys Knight. Everything started in 1996 when Gladys Knight was set to join a tour called Sisters of Soul, featuring three divas herself, Patti LaBelle and Chaka Khan. The concept, created by an independent producer in New York, was to honor three of the most powerful voices still performing. The plan was 50-50 spotlight sharing with solo segments and collaborative duets or trios. Yet a few weeks before the tour's kickoff, Patti LaBelle dropped a bomb. She demanded to close each night's show, citing, "I sell more tickets than either of you." She also insisted on rearranging the shared arrangements, refusing to sing backup without her own lead mic. When the organizers pushed back, explaining that Gladys Knight had just as much draw, Patti exploded, "I don't line up behind anyone. I don't care who it is." Word reached Gladys Knight quickly. A member of her band later said it stung her pride. She didn't argue or lash out, but at the next meeting she withdrew not just from the finale, but from all tour marketing. The premiere of Sisters of Soul featured Patti LaBelle and Chaka only. From that day forward, for nearly 10 years, Patti and Gladys were never seen together again. Neither woman spoke publicly, but the media sensed the chill. Fans on Soulful Detroit Lipstick Alley and Reddit recounted seeing Patti cold shoulder Gladys at a BET Awards backstage event in 2000. In footage, the camera pans to Gladys standing by the audience. Patti walks past without a glance. That same year, both recorded a Luther Vandross tribute. Patti, however, recorded her part in a separate studio, refusing to meet or speak with Gladys. The mashup release featured Patti on the cover, Gladys barely credited in a tiny corner. That was also the tipping point for Patti's diva label. Bossing around stage managers over mic stands during rehearsals, storming out of talk shows when asked about her weight, even firing a backup singer whose voice overshadowed hers. In a 2004 interview about her relationships with fellow female artists, Patti bluntly replied, "I love them, but I don't play with weak people. If they can't handle me, that's their problem, not mine." Though not aimed directly at Gladys, every word hit home. Patti LaBelle could burn a friendship if no one stepped aside. Gladys Knight, true to form, retreated in silence. But in a 2007 Ebony interview, when asked if she'd ever been hurt by a colleague, she said quietly, "I thought some were sisters until one day they passed me by without a look. I could only smile and step back." It wasn't until 2009's Divas Live on VH1 that fans saw an olive branch. They shook hands on stage and sang a short duet, but in Gladys's eyes, caution still lingered. Patti, as usual, grabbed the spotlight, closing the segment with a 20-second ad-lib that overshadowed Gladys's harmony. The audience applauded. Cameras zoomed in on their faces. And for the first time in years, viewers realized a friendship doesn't shatter from betrayal, but from an ego that refuses to step down. Patti LaBelle is undeniably great, but in her grandeur, she lost the chance to preserve a friendship that once meant more than fame. And for Gladys Knight, that wound, though not bloody, still runs deep. 4. Chaka Khan, the proud voice. There's an unspoken rule among diva legends. Whoever hits the higher note gets to stand taller. But not for Chaka Khan, who could ignite an entire hall with her voice, yet arrogantly walk past someone she once called a sister, without so much as looking back. Among the whispered rivalries of superstar divas, Chaka Khan and Gladys Knight's tension was the kind rarely talked about. Not as public as the feuds between Aretha and Diana, nor as drawn out as Patti and Gladys, but its sting was unique. A silent betrayal from someone once considered family, a public dismissal in front of thousands. Gladys Knight seldom complained, but in a 2005 Jet interview about why she took nearly a year off, she mentioned a young singer I'd helped bring up, someone I called sis, someone I defended in the press. But when I needed them, they turned away first. No names. Yet within months, the answer was out there. In 2004, Chicago's Soul Royalty Fest brought together over 20 soul legends, including Chaka and Gladys Knight, Erykah Badu, and Mary J. Blige. The event featured a segment called Tribute to the Originals, pairing new voices with legends, bridging generations. Gladys was set to duet with Mary J. Blige. Chaka was to sing with Erykah Badu. Then, days before the show, Chaka dropped a demand. If Gladys Knight remained in the closing slot, she would withdraw. The reason was vague, not the right tone, not the right image. But insiders on Lipstick Alley say Chaka thought Gladys wasn't hot anymore, didn't deserve to close, and diminish the show's modern edge. Rumor, but enough to shake planning. Rather than confront publicly, organizers quietly removed Gladys from the poster, cut her duet with Mary J., and replaced her with Chaka for the final act alongside the younger artists. Gladys was told at the last minute her time was cut due to broadcast constraints. No apology, no direct explanation from Chaka. That night, Chaka lit up the stage singing "Ain't Nobody" to wild applause. But backstage whispers echoed. Gladys Knight waits in her car. No one went to get her. A young singer there later said, "I saw her through the glass, with her costume just looking cold." One might have thought that was the end, but for nearly a decade after, Gladys Knight never mentioned Chaka Khan. No joint performances, no shared publicity, even though they had collaborated in the 90s. Yet back in the late 80s, Gladys had stood by Chaka's side when news broke of Chaka's legal troubles around drugs and domestic incidents. Radio stations pulled her records. Gladys publicly defended her. Chaka is a fighter who went off the path, but she'll sing again and will forgive. That helped Chaka regain footing. She cried on stage. But 15 years later, when Gladys was pushed off the stage, Chaka offered no hand. Chaka's backstage reputation is as fierce as her voice. She's been asked to leave Oprah's Legends Ball dressing rooms for insisting on replacing chairs that clashed with her gown. In a 2010 interview asked about other divas, she replied bluntly, "I didn't learn from any of them. They learned from me. I'm not here to be anyone's friend." In 2018, she shocked the industry by dismissing Adele's vocals as dinner buffet level and stating Beyoncé shouldn't be called an icon until she's written at least 10 songs solo. Those remarks earned applause, but also burned bridges, especially with those who once supported her. To Gladys Knight. The snub from Chaka was a wound that never healed. As some in the scene joked, when you're useful, Chaka calls you sis. When you're not, you're just a shadow blocking her spotlight. And in that list, Gladys Knight was the brightest light to dim. 5. Martha Reeves. The sister hip that turned cold when she had Gladys removed from the stage. The worst betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from those who once stood by you under the same spotlight. For Gladys Knight, that blow didn't come from Diana Ross or Aretha Franklin. They were never close. It came from a sister in music, a label mate, someone she ate with, and shared the stage with Martha Reeves. In the 1960s, the two women were Motown's female pillars. Martha Reeves led Martha and the Vandellas, the first girl group at the label to break through with hits like Dancing in the Street and Nowhere to Run. Gladys Knight arrived later with the Pips emerging as a powerful voice, filled with pain and passion. Initially, there was mutual respect, but by the late 60s, as Motown began staging large-scale tours, competition intensified and drama erupted. During the Motown Caravan Summer Tour, 1971, Motown planned a grand finale called The Power of Motown Women, where the top two female acts, Martha and the Vandellas and Gladys Knight and the Pips, would close the show together in a medley. Lead vocals were supposed to be shared equally. However, just 3 days before the opening night in Cleveland, Berry Gordy personally ordered a change. The finale would be performed exclusively by Gladys Knight and the Pips. Martha was completely cut with no notice. When Martha found out, she stormed into the tour office. According to crew member John T., she slammed her notebook on the table, demanded the lineup be rewritten, and threatened to quit. If Gladys wasn't removed from the closing slot, when denied, she declared she wouldn't allow this up-and-comer to steal the spotlight on her tour. Gladys Knight only discovered the change during the dress rehearsal and saw Martha's eyes cold as ice. No greeting, no words, nothing like the sister who once shared the mic with her at the 1969 Motown Review. That evening before the show, Martha even asked the stage manager to swap Gladys's lead microphone for a lesser model claiming for audio balance. The request was denied, but the intention was clear. In the following shows, Martha performed with sing intensity, skipped the customary bow, and even hinted to the audience that some singers get top billing not because of skill, but because of favoritism. Gladys remained composed, but throughout the tour they didn't speak. No backstage photos, no shared buses, no handshakes. Only an atmosphere so cold, even the band could feel it. After the tour, things got worse. In 1972, Motown filmed a TV special titled Motown Salute to Women in Soul. Martha was invited, but upon learning Gladys was scheduled to open, she refused to share the dressing room, demanding the lineup be changed or she would withdraw. More alarmingly, according to the broadcast director, Martha sent a memo to Berry Gordy suggesting Gladys be removed from a planned Motown compilation album, citing attitude issues. The idea was rejected, but many saw it as a calculated strike. No microphone needed, no words spoken. Martha wanted Gladys erased from the Motown narrative she'd once felt was hers. In the years that followed, Martha Reeves' career faltered. After leaving Motown, her solo album flopped. She battled alcoholism for nearly a decade, was arrested for public drunkenness in Miami, and performed in casino lounges wearing a 1970s wardrobe. Meanwhile, Gladys Knight soared, earning Grammys, hosting TV shows, and becoming a quietly enduring diva. In 1983, at the Motown 25 Yesterday Today, Forever Special Martha and Gladys were initially slated to duet on Neither One of Us. Martha flatly refused, even demanding Gladys be removed from the program. As a result, Martha wasn't invited. Gladys performed solo. From that moment, all reconciliation attempts failed. What shocked many was Martha's 2006 rebirth in local politics, running for Detroit City Council. In a press conference, she declared, "I was once pushed off stage by a fellow artist, but now I'm reclaiming the microphone of politics." The public reaction was stunned. Many interpreted it as ironic that she was the one who pushed someone else off the stage. Gladys Knight never publicly retaliated. But in her 1997 memoir, she wrote, "Someone once called me sister, sang beside me night after night." Then when the mic went on, they were the first to cut the cord. No names mentioned, but everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. Today, Martha Reeves still performs. She remains an icon, a key chapter in Motown history. Yet behind every recording and final bow, there's a dark chapter she wrote herself, driven by jealousy, stubbornness, and decisions she's never apologized for. As Gladys Knight revealed these truths, what chills you the most isn't just the names she listed, but how some hurt a living legend with silence envy and backstage manipulation. Do you think these were just professional disagreements or intentional betrayals? Which name shocked you the most, and do you believe more names are yet to be revealed? Share your thoughts below, because the game of power beyond the spotlight isn't.